My name is Rhonda and I am shooting this video because I want to share my personal experience with Xanax and Paxil and Ambien and a number of prescription drugs that you all may be interested in or doing some research about. I'm here to tell my story because I began using Xanax and Paxil and Ambien, a prescription drug, approximately 2.5 years ago. I started using this medication because I had a tragic death in my family. My husband was killed in a motorcycle accident and by a hit and run driver. And during that whole time, I had panic attacks. I was very, very nervous. I was fearful. I experienced a lot of emotions that I've never experienced before. And after going to the doctor and saying, I'm having these little thumps and convulsions and I'm not sure exactly what it is, she knew exactly what it was. Unfortunately, my husband's death was televised, and so a lot of people knew what was going on, and they kind of knew that I was going through some things. So my doctor prescribed me Xanax to calm my anxiety, Paxil for depression. I went into a depression. I went into a major depression. I had trouble sleeping. I had trouble thinking. I cried all the time. I went through an emotional experience that some of you may be going through or have went through, and some people turn to all kinds of alternatives, drugs, alcohol. My story is about prescription drugs. I've decided to shoot this video to give you my experience so that you can feel what I felt when I started taking Xanax, why I stayed on it for 2.5 years, and why I decided to go off. I have 2 children, David and Daniel, who are 2 of the most wonderful boys on the face of this earth. I love them dearly, and because of the death of their dad, it was so beyond devastating. One moment he's here, 15 minutes later, he's in a tragic accident where he lived for 14 days and died. And it's really still hard for me to accept that even now, 2.5 years later. But during that time, I began taking prescription drugs that really helped me calm my nerves, calm my anxiety, calm the depression that I was going through. Xanax is a medication that makes you feel like nothing is wrong around you. Everything is okay. It helps you sleep. It helps you not think about everyday life, I guess. It puts you in a place where you feel that you're in this world, but you're not really in the world. It's like you're away from a lot of different events that's going on around you. It's as though you're not there in the midst of it, and you really are. Even though Xanax was there as a temporary aid for me, it should have been a temporary aid for me. And, just after doing a lot of research, when I say temporary, and even when the physicians say temporary, they say between 3 to 4 months. I was on it for 2.5 years. I know people who are watching this video have been on Xanax for years and years. It affected me to the point it helped me to an extent. But then once I decided to get off of Xanax is when I realized, it really didn't solve the problem. He's still dead. The person who hit him is still not captured. The problems were still there. And it was more of a Band-Aid than anything for me. We have an incredible faith in God. And even though I've been asked the question, because of your faith in God, why did you still take that type of medication? And my doctor prescribed it to me. That was my excuse. I felt like I trusted her. She knew what she was doing. She prescribed this medication to me. It did help, but it was something that as time went on, I increased my dosage. I increased the dosages because I felt every time something came up in my life, I needed to take a little bit more. And that's where the prescription drug abuse comes in to play. From my perspective, because I was never a drug user. I was never an alcohol user. I was addicted to prescription medication. And I am so grateful to be here to tell my story right now. I decided to come off of the medication about 6 months ago when I accidentally forgot to take my medication for 2 days. Just 2 days. And I realized that I was going through a withdrawal. I had no idea what a withdrawal was. I just knew that I was driving one day and I started having these panic attacks. I mean, major panic attacks. Hot sweat, cold flashes, sweat everywhere. And while I was driving, I was trying to contain myself, of course. And I was on the phone with a dear friend, and I appreciate her so much because she stayed on the line with me. And I pulled over into a mall parking lot, and I literally, as soon as I stopped the car, I blacked out. When I came through, I was drenched in sweat. And I just prayed, God, I can't not leave like this. You know, when you go through things like that, you think you're just getting ready to die. And so I got it. I continued to drive. And I said, I need to get to a hospital because something is not right. So I ended up having to pull over again and go through these extensive hot flashes and convulsions that I later found out about. Once I got to the hospital, the ER doctor asked me what medications I was on. I told him. He asked me, when was the last time I took this medication? I told him, I think about 2 days ago, not realizing that it was a big deal that I stopped taking it 2 days ago. And he told me I was going through withdrawal. I was like, no, I don't use drugs. He said, no, withdrawals from the Xanax and the Paxil. And I said, how can I go through a withdrawal? You know, I'm thinking withdrawal is from a street drug, like street drugs, not from a prescription medication. When he told me that is when I realized that I really need to stop taking this medication because I don't want to experience this ever again in this life. But during the ER visit, they ended up giving me Xanax. Because you can't just stop taking Xanax. You have to wean yourself off of it. And I did not realize that. I'm thinking, I just don't want to take the medication anymore. But you cannot just stop taking Xanax. So I was so beyond frustrated. I ended up taking the medication. My normal prescription of 0.5 milligrams. And by then, I had actually was up to 50 milligrams because I wanted to just take more because of different things that was happening in my life, and I felt like Xanax would help. And I took Paxil. I took 40 milligrams of Paxil a day. I also took Ambien. If you can imagine taking all of this medication together, you are in a comatose state. It was times I did not know who was around me. I did not know what was happening around me. I was so out of it that I could not even move. My eyes would be open and I did not have a clue of what was going on around me. And also during this time, I had told my mom, I'm going to stop taking this. And she said, I hope so, because it disgusts me to see you the way you are when you take this medication. It's as though you're drunk, that you're under some type of influence. And my children had told me the same thing. And I think that was my breaking point. Shortly after my experience with ER, I had another death in the family. My father-in-law. He passed away, and I was so devastated and unsure of what my children, how they were reacting to the fact that 1 year their grandmother passed away, 2 years later their uncle passed away, 2 years later their dad was killed in a motorcycle accident, and 2.5 years later their granddad died. I was so concerned about them that, of course, I sought spiritual counseling, and I also sought professional counseling. And one evening we were at church, and we had counseling session, and to talk about the death of their granddad. And I was just really so concerned about them. But when I actually went into the session, the counselor told me that your children are more concerned about you. And that's when I decided that, I really need to get off this medication, and I need to do it now. The counselor told me that they were more concerned about me and my use of prescription medication. How I had a loss of memory. I could not remember a lot of things that they would tell me about as far as school, activities, different things. I couldn't remember what they had told me. And they would, one day, one of my friends that came over, and I had the alarm on in the house, and when she came in, I was so under the influence of this prescription medication that I did not hear the alarm go off in my house, and it's pretty loud. And she came in, and she tried to shake me and tried to wake me up, and she was so upset. She was like seconds from calling 911. And I kind of came through, and she was like, what is going on? Because I had gotten to a point that I was taking Xanax, Paxil, and Ambien at the same time. So, yes, I am really glad to be here to tell my story, because those are medications that you don't take at the same time. I was prescribed the medications, Paxil, a 90-day supply, Xanax, a 30-day supply, Ambien, a 30-day supply. Paxil is an antidepressant, and if you can imagine having a 90-day supply of Paxil, Xanax, and Ambien, and you did not want to care about absolutely nothing that's going on around you, that's where the abuse come in. And when situations came up in my life, I felt that, I'll just increase my medication. And I did. And when I decided, I really don't need this, I'll get off of it, it was the worst experience that I have ever had to go through. I went through a true withdrawal. In January, I decided that I wanted to fast and pray and truly believe God that He would deliver me from this medication. I fasted and prayed for a number of things during that time, but my primary focus was to literally get off of the medication. So I went cold turkey. I don't recommend going cold turkey to any of you.